All right, hopefully y'all can hear me.
What up, though?
What's going on? You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay.
me? Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm,
It's clear.
mm-hmm. Clear. Clear. Like right when I was
Beautiful.
about to hop on, it was like coming through, phone call coming through.
Is that right?
Yeah, so but all good. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. How's your day been?
What'd you say?
I said, how has your day been?
The day has been cool. Mondays are Mondays, and trying to kick the week off fast. So got some
Mm-hmm.
work and stuff done. Now it's time to get it cracking. Getting off to a good start for this year as far as business wise. Um, but the goal is to grow and go.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, Mecca?
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna kick off this year. We decided to come up with doing some lives. We've been recording some, what we call it, the
Some episodes or some
couch
oh
conversations
couch
and all that good
conversations.
stuff. Talking and filming. But we figured
Mm-hmm.
let's start off with a live to start doing this to where it could be quick. Well, not quick as far as what we're trying to talk about, but as far as
Mm-hmm.
you and I connecting to talk
Yeah.
to the people and to educate the people.
Yeah.
So before that, what would you say as far as how business wise 2026 is starting for you?
2026 is already crazy, I guess maybe I won't go so deep into some things, but uh it started off well. It's definitely been eventful, especially in this last week. But getting clients off to a fast start.
Right.
Some of my advising clients anyways. Q4 for me, Q4 is heavy tax planning. It's heavy, like, all right, what do these investments need to look like? What structures do we have to put together? So it's talking to attorneys, talking to accountants, talking to quite a few people. Um, and so right now, to obviously to figure out how we can minimize, where people are tax wise, but now it's executing on some things. But it's
Right.
also just, helping people execute on their goals. Business wise, there's some new services that I'm offering, going even taking it a little deeper with clients. And so but good stuff, because it was in response to some of what I've been hearing last
Right.
year. But so in that respect is good. I got added a new person on my team so to work with, so I can, start to delegate even more. Um but yeah, other than that, it's always moving. Same with you, like
You're right.
business is always going. It's always something.
It's always going, it's always moving. So that's the first thing we'll talk about. You mentioned Q4 is getting clients together about their taxes and what they have to do. So, as we kick off 2026, every few years it seems like an adjustment is made when it comes to retirement contribution limits. Okay. So, as we're big on helping people set up Ross and things of that nature because of those benefits. Okay. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover the few changes that's been in place, and then you can pick up on how people could adjust their contributions or what they should start doing to see how they should contribute. All right. And the benefits of what they can do. So for 2026, traditional and Roth IRA contributions
Mm-hmm.
have bumped up a little bit.
Yeah.
Last year, if you were under the age of 50, it was 7,000 you can contribute to the Roth and the traditional. This year, that is up to 7,500. And if you are over the age of 50, they bumped that up an extra $1,100. So, as we talk about tax planning and strategy, for those, let's start with those that are typical employees. Okay, they got a 401k at the job. What should they look at with their contribution to their retirement plan at the job, and then what should they look at with adding outside of the job? And I'll
Yeah.
follow up with you.
So yeah, so if they match, so matching is the most important thing when it comes to an employer sponsored account. That damn near, yeah, it makes or breaks if I would even recommend, not if this is all for education, and so
Right.
talk to your advisor. As we always say, talk to your advisor. I am a advisor, but I'm not your advisor. But no, so yeah, first things first is just assessing, does your company match? Because if they don't match, my recommendation will likely be that you don't even necessarily need to be tapping into your employer sponsored account. One of the
Right.
biggest things is that you get free money. That's the biggest potential benefit. And if they're not even giving that, one, they stingy. But two,
Right.
I'm like,
Very
well,
important.
shoot, we might as well go ahead and take this and do this on our own. And so definitely tapping into that company match and maxing it. So whatever you can afford to do, then definitely maximize it. And once you do max out on your match, right, then we start to transition to the some of the other accounts outside of outside of
The
the
job.
employer sponsored. Sorry.
Okay. So for this year, 2026, all right, the annual taxpayer deferral limit for 401ks, 403bs, and 457s is $24,500. So you talked about they definitely should take that match. So if you are at a job, you definitely need to look into see, is your job matching? 1%, 2%. Most of the time, the max is usually like around 5%, right?
Mm-hmm,
Most of the
mm-hmm,
time. That's free money. Okay, that's free money. So let's say you are putting in 500 a month into your 401k. They're putting in 500 a month. Then that means $1,000 a month is going to that 401k, which
mm-hmm.
benefits clients with money down the line.
Yeah.
So that's important. Now, if you are boom boom, let's say catch up deferral contribution for those ages 50 to 59, 64 and older, for your 401k, 403b, and 457 plans, they're adding an extra $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So explain how that is significant with them being able to add, if you're over the age of 50 to get those catch up contributions. Explain how that is significant and how important it is.
Yeah, it's one of those things like um, it's like take the benefits where you could take them, and if part of you if in addition to the other senior benefits that you get, you know what I'm saying, in
Right.
different places. If one of those benefits is you being able to put more money in a tax advantaged way, then definitely do that. You want to assess, because one of the biggest things is, where are you as far as retirement at those ages,
Right.
right? I know you and we have very interesting conversations with people in their 30s, hell, 40s, but 50s and 60s for sure. And it's,
Right.
the question may be, what is it looking like as it relates to your retirement? Do you have enough? And if you don't have enough, then yeah, we got to talk about these bumped up contributions. And so I think that's
Right.
a part of, where part of that came from within IRS and the government doing that. But yeah, those maximize them, especially the seniors or people just that are later on in their retirement accumulation period, like, or retirement growth period, like maximize that stuff if you can do it.
Absolutely. So do you think, especially for our generation, okay, we can say that the baby boomers, Generation X, they probably weren't. Of course, a lot of them weren't financially educated on what they should do and how significant the 401k. Most of them were used to pensions back in the day, but we know a lot
Mhm.
of things have changed with that.
Yeah.
For millennials, for what's that? What's it? Gen Z and Gen Alpha that's behind us.
Yeah.
Okay, why would you? What would be the biggest thing you say? that contributes to them not focusing on the importance of that? What do you think that is? And how can we teach them to understand that making these contributions benefits them down the
Yeah.
long?
They, I think that, you know, a lot of the Gen Zers, they think real short term, you
Right,
know, just, I don't know if by nature is the right way to say it. That may not be the right words, but like they're just not thinking very long term. And it
right,
honestly, in my opinion, it requires them to surround themselves with certain people
right,
that would like advise them, like wise counsel that like advises them around some of that stuff.
right,
And so it's damn near person to person, right? So you hope people, some of these streamers and stuff, you know, some of these young kids that are out there, that they have, you know, big bros or whatever, or you know, people that they're
the
looking
big
to,
homies.
yeah, that's like advising them, hey, you know, or suggesting this, right? Like, yeah, work with an advisor or put some money up or this or that. So because by nature, I don't think that that's happening. That's just not where
Right,
they are. Like if we look at these platforms, their mind is not on retirement accounts, you know, in the long
right,
term. So it even with some of the ones obviously that I work with, like that's not what they're thinking about. Are they putting it?
right,
Yeah, but that's because they've aligned themselves with the right people. You know what I'm saying?
right.
That's gonna make sure that that happens for them. But yes, I think just proximity, getting
I
with making sure
think
they got people.
that's important.
Mhm.
Proximity is important because depending on who you're hanging around and who you are associating with, that is the information you're going to take in. So
Yeah,
whether you're a big spender and you like to go out and buy Gucci and Louis and Jordans, all that's what you're going to be around. But if you're around people who are able to give you guidance on moving forward in the right direction, I think that's something that will truly help. And it's not even just about retirement saving; it's about
right,
saving money. Period. You
right,
know, I
for sure.
find last year I find myself really being frustrated with just where we are collectively when it comes to the money game for
Mhm.
millennials. Especially in the times we're living where a lot of things are changing. What I've learned even with the political spectrum is depending on who's in office, a lot of things will shift. And we have to be able to adjust
Yeah,
in the middle of those shifts. But at the same time, we still got to be focused on what we need to do for ourselves. And I think for me, I'm really pressing myself to really go hard to get our people to really focus in on that. It's not even just about saving specifically for retirement. We're talking about picking up that habit in general. And I think we have to really sit down and focus on what's important. You know, a lot of people have lost jobs over the last year, whether it's due to AI or quote unquote budget cuts and things of that nature. So we have to focus on that. So, like you mentioned, the streamers, the YouTubers, they are the new media to where they can
Mhm.
push a certain message to our generation and the next to understand that. But you and I, you know, it's our duty to educate on that. And I think for us, being able to hop on these lives, being able to talk to people out in the field, in the streets, whether social media or in person, I know you speak at a lot of events. This is where we are able to really have an impact on people with letting them
Yeah.
know that it's doable. I think when it comes to stock market investing, we kind of get afraid. Why do you think that is? We get afraid to invest and to understand that that's really where the value is when it comes to our money. I mean, all these major, they're not even what they call large cap companies anymore. They like mega caps now.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
getting crazy. They talking about Elon Musk can make $1 trillion from Tesla stock alone.
Hmm.
So, what is it that can transform the mental capacity of millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha
The
to
mental capacity.
get the mental capacity
What's
to
gonna
take
get
that
through and
in?
penetrate? You know what? In part, I also think, and I'll use this personal experience. It also is the messaging, you know, because when people think of retirement, automatically you're thinking 60s, right? And
Right,
so what I will often say, and the words that I will often use, and I even have a challenge around this, is how soon you want to make work optional, right?
right,
Because, you know, and you begin to, you know, you can liken it to people in sports, you can to whoever, you can liken it to whoever, but it's saying do you know that within the next 15 years, this can, this can be, it doesn't have to be the next 30, right? It doesn't have to be when you're 60. It could be when you're 50. It could be when you're 40. How soon
Right.
do you want to make work optional? And when people say, when maybe sometimes in just again how you approach the messaging around that and the
Right.
question that you ask for that, then you get a different answer. And it's like, all right, well, that if you want to, so let's say I'm talking to a 30-year-old. Okay, well, if you want to make work optional, and again, optional just means I have the option to work. If I'm talking to somebody that's 30 and they're like, you know what, I want to make work optional by the time I'm 45, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to stop working at 45. Again, it just
Right.
becomes their option to do that. They can choose. They can do, there's a phased retirements that sometimes people will do, which is where, you might take off for like 2 years, but you've
Right.
saved up enough and then you might go back. Like it can look very different, for people. But
Right.
if we can, again, they have to be willing to listen. We need to get good at messaging it. These young people have to be surrounding themselves with certain type of people as well. I think there's work that certainly we can do, but there's also, they have to be interested. I literally was just having I don't know if she's on here. I was just having a conversation with my niece, because so we are the ages that we are. I don't know how old you are. I just know you're younger than me. But the reality is you have to keep saying things over and over and over and over again. And it just is what it is. Sometimes people are not ready for the message. They weren't ready for the message a year ago, right? They weren't ready for the message 2 years ago. But we just have to stay consistent to the message that we're putting out, right? Make sure we're putting out a solid one. But also it's about where people are mentally. And if they're
Right.
not there, I gave her the same message a year, a particular message, right? A year ago, not necessarily investing, right? But if I gave her a message a year ago, it may not be till 12 months later to where, she comes to me and she's like, I remember when you told me, remember when
Right.
we were talking like a year ago, and
It started to sink in later.
it just is the time. And that happens with various people, right? They could be 23 or 43, right? So
Right.
it don't matter. But there's a degree of, us, again, putting out the message consistently and in a solid way. But then some people just they got to be ready to hear it.
Right. So let's break it down from an educational perspective. So as we're talking about saving for retirement, the importance of it. So break down the difference between the traditional IRA, the Roth IRA, and then for self-employed people, a solo 401k and a SEP IRA. Let's educate the people on that.
Yeah, so one, IRAs, period. So non-retirement accounts, fee wise, are generally speaking, they're going to have lower fees than employer sponsored accounts. So 401ks, 403bs, 457s. So IRAs are going to have less fees. So that's one of the reasons why people will say, or advisors will often say, after you've maxed out, because we can't give you free money, right? The advisor
Right.
can't give you free money. When you go open up a brokerage account with whoever, they can't give you free money like your employer can. So
Right.
that's why we always are like, go get that free money. That's literally a 100 or 50% rate of return. Like, because they literally gave you free money, right? Outside of the market growth. But once you do that and you've maxed that out, yeah, it could be advantageous to go to the IRA. So the first personal, or the most common personal IRAs, are the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. The difference between the two is what type of dollars are you putting in? Are you putting in pre-tax dollars into that IRA, or are you putting in after-tax dollars, right, into that IRA? And so depending on your situation, because there's everybody hears about the Roth IRA, right, so much. And so, yes, for the most part, yeah, we're going to definitely advocate for the Roth IRA, but there are
Right.
also certain people where we need to know your situation to know, hell, because the traditional might be a better option for your specific situation,
Right.
specifically for like your tax situation, right? But yeah, so that's where it's in Roth IRA, I'm sorry, IRA money. So whether it's traditional or Roth IRA money comes out of your personal bank account. When we get to some of these other IRAs, they come out of a different bank. Some of it
Right.
comes out of a different bank account. But those are the two, initial personal retirement accounts that you can have outside of your job.
Facts. So you mentioned about The two types, the traditional or the Roth, depending on the person's situation and what they can do tax wise. So
Yeah.
with that traditional IRA, so if you are employed or self-employed, you're looking at that option. If you're trying to cut down on some taxes for 2025, then a traditional allows you to get that tax deduction. Now you
Hmm.
definitely need to speak with your CPA, your tax professional, see how much you need to contribute, how would it benefit you. And then that Roth, why that's great for you long term, once again, depending on your situation, that money gets to grow tax free because after tax dollars that you got paid on already is going into that account. So this is something that we really, really got to focus on, and like why you saying is beneficial. Now,
Hmm.
when it comes to investing into these type of accounts, you got options on how you can invest, whether you doing mutual funds, whether you're doing single stocks or ETFs. So break down the difference between, those three different types. Because sometimes I'm pretty sure you get this question too. Should I get an IRA or a mutual fund? And then you
Yeah.
got to
Right.
explain to them like the mutual fund goes
Right.
inside of the
The
IRA.
island.
They're
Right.
two separate things. So,
Right.
share with the people about that. Depending on the choice that they make, do they? Because I get a question too, where you just educated somebody and then they see something on Instagram and they talk about what is an ETF.
Right.
And should I invest in that or the mutual fund, and which one better?
Yeah, and I'm looking up. I was going to something because they change these every single year. There's something I wanted
Right.
to hit on just before I went to the question that you asked. The other thing that people need to understand is income limits. Is that the
Yeah.
traditional IRA and the Roth IRA also have income limits? So I've
Oh,
had
I got that
people.
for you right here.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, please go over because I've had people that are like, "Oh, I'm putting in a Roth IRA," but they're making too much money
Too much
to
money.
to qualify
Yeah.
for the benefit, the tax-free benefit of the Roth. So yeah, if you could go over the income
All right,
income
so let's
limit.
talk about that. Traditional IRA deductibility phased out for single taxpayers participating in employer plans rises from 81,000 to 91,000. Okay?
Yeah.
Traditional IRA deductibility phase out for married joint filing taxpayers both participating in employer plans rises from 129,000 to 149,000. So that's an extra 20,000 increase, which is pretty cool. Traditional IRA deductibility phase out for married with a spouse as an active participant in an employer plan rises from 242,000 to 252,000. You want to break down that one first, or you want me to go over the Roth as well?
I actually want you to just hone in on because if a person is watching this and they're married filing jointly, want you to obviously pay attention to and that's your tax status, that's how you file, then pay attention to that for yourself. But I would like for you to hit just on the single,
The
just a
single?
single filer. Is the single filer for, so I heard you say for single filer
Okay.
for income limit for traditional is 81,000. That's the new one is 81,000. And then for
90.
Roth is what? Or go ahead.
Tonight, so the traditional has risen from 81,000 to 91 for single. The Roth income limit, determining maximum contributions for single filers and head of household. The phase out range rises from 153,000 to 168,000.
Okay. So yeah,
Okay.
and some people might be like, I am not near that. That's fine. I just want to
Right.
make sure that that's clear that they're technically, if you're doing well, and let's say, but you make 170,000, the Roth IRA, you might be putting in a Roth IRA, but technically you cannot get that full
Right.
tax free benefit, and just want to make sure that you're aware of that. But we can go with. But what was your question before again?
No, but that's important because, like you said, that educational factor. So somebody who's making, if you single and you making 60,000, 70,000, that Roth could be something that's been very beneficial for you.
Hmm. Right.
Okay, that's very important. So when we say the phase out, that just means where the cap is. Okay,
Hmm.
if you make over this amount of money, you cannot attribute to this type of account. All right, so
You can
that is
contribute. So let me
okay.
be. You can contribute, and they'll let you contribute, but you
Right,
technically cannot qualify. Yeah, you can't get that tax benefit. You can't necessarily get. But go ahead.
right. Okay,
Hmm.
so that was the Roth. We already talked about what specifically, of course, like I said, they got to get with a tax professional and which one would suit them best.
Yeah.
Um, but we're talking about, all right, when it comes to contributing, because sometimes people will get confused and they say, well, should I get an IRA or should I get a mutual fund? So breaking down what a mutual fund is, we can put it in simplest terms. How I like to explain it is, look, It's multiple companies together. Okay.
Mhm.
Now we know the professional lingo is pooled assets. We're all investing together, but that confuses people sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
So people would think, all right, how can I buy some Netflix stock or how can I buy Google and all of that? Well, if you're not a person who studies this information, all right, then with a mutual fund, it can take stress off of you of thinking about the market going up and down because it's a little bit safer because you can have multiple companies together. All right, you can
Mhm.
have over 50 to 100, 150 companies in a mutual fund. So now you're not really stressed out. Okay, did Google go up today or did Google go down today? All
Right.
right. Did Tesla go up today or did Tesla go down today? So from an educational standpoint, once again, how can that be beneficial for someone who's trying to invest into a traditional IRA or a Roth, and having a mutual fund versus, a single stock?
Yeah. So one, you mentioned this earlier, and I just want to make sure. So as an
Jonathan,
advisor,
2022. We just went over that right before you hopped on, brother, about the income limits
oh yeah, yeah.
and your
So it went
limit.
up to what? Not income limits. Well, I don't know if he's referring to contribution limits or income limits, but yeah, I don't think he might not have been on with the income. Can you repeat the contribution limits for 2026?
All right, 2020. Look, I can't get my words out. So the traditional and the Roth IRA contribution limits for 2026. If you are under the age of 50, is 7,500, so $7,500. If you are over the age of 50, they did an extra $1,100 catch-up contribution for those that are over the age of 50. So for those traditionals and Roths, that's very, very important.
Yeah. So as an advisor, like stocks, I don't recommend stocks into IRAs, into retirement accounts. I reserve stocks for brokerage accounts, because you're putting all your eggs in one basket. But right, like you said, so mutual funds, ETFs, index funds, they are groups, and groups of stock, right, of a company, and you don't have to you don't have to keep your eye on it. So with mutual funds, so sometimes, and somebody just asked me this last week. It's like, what's the difference? What are the difference between between them? And it's which is really important. So like ETFs and mutual funds are very much like cousins.
Right.
Okay, so
Very,
they're
very
both
like
group.
cousins.
Yeah, they're both groups of stock, right? So, right, in one ETF or in one mutual fund, you could be invested in a bunch of different companies. But your $100 a month or your $50 a month, or whatever per month is spread amongst all those different companies versus your
Right.
$100 a month or your $50 a month beginning to put into one company, right? With the ETF, you are um, it is a more passive though, so those are more passive. So people always talk about ETFs having lower fees because it's a
Right.
more passive way of investing. An ETF oftentimes will just mirror an exchange, right?
Hmm.
And so however that group of companies does, the ETF will just mirror it. It's not necessarily actively moving stuff in and out, like really paying attention and moving stuff out.
Right.
So that's great on the fee side, right? Because it's lower fees to that. But it also, they're not actively, I don't say they're not actively paying attention, but it's just not it's not active management. So
Right.
for people who like the more active management, don't mind paying, slightly, it shouldn't be crazy. The fee shouldn't be crazy, but who want that active management, you're going to go for the mutual fund. So those have active, fund managers,
Or money
people who
manager.
have good, that they're paying attention. And so if it's looking like certain companies are not doing as well, they're like swap out,
Yep.
and replace. So
And
it's just
that's
more active.
that's the benefit and the value that's brought when it comes to that,
Yeah.
to help the consumer because the average everyday person is not sitting down on the computer googling
Right.
all these companies. You
Right.
might hear some things on the news from time to time, but if you're not immersed into this and studying it, it's gonna be like reading a goddamn dictionary sometime.
Right.
That's why
Right.
we're here to bring this information to the people. So as we talk about that, one of the important things that you and I are very, very focused on, is trying to get our people to understand how we can potentially close this wealth gap. First,
Mhm.
it starts with what we're talking about with saving and investing. But then next, it comes to other assets like real estate. All right. So, President Trump just put out that he's going to try and stop big companies from purchasing single family homes. So let's just talk about the importance of home ownership and how that can play a role with us trying to close the wealth gap, for the black community.
Yeah. Obviously we talked about this a little bit, but you know, um, on the surface, one, listen, I'm skeptical of anything. So let me say that. Let me say that very, very clearly and very directly, right? I'm skeptical of anything. All right. I'm like, there's a back door to a
Right.
lot of things that's getting done right now. But because sure, it sounds nice. But we'll
Well,
we'll we'll get to the gray areas of it.
whether he's able to do it or not, you and I, our whole purpose is to help our people to understand no matter what way the economy goes, the world goes, we still need assets.
Still need assets. Still need to buy assets. That is how you build wealth. Like there's not really, you're not going to save your way to wealth, right? So, buying assets super obviously still super important. So yeah, kind of aside from that, um, people have to begin to position themselves for that, right? It all starts with your income. That's why we're so you know adamant
Important.
about you know getting additional streams because again whether you want to talk about the one stream having one stream is too close to none, right? Or you just not controlling it. You people are not even surviving in a solid way
Yeah.
with just one stream of income. You need multiple streams. So that was kind of the other kind of question or side eye to what you were talking about with the president or with the whole stopping institutional investors from buying family homes because hell you still got to make it affordable for people to buy what I'm saying,
Right.
single family homes, right? So income wise, but aside from that, yeah, once you have those things together, yeah, getting those cash flowing assets is so important. Property is super super duper important. There are three ways that you can benefit from property, right? With not just the obviously being in the investment, and that the value of that investment appreciating. But on the tax side, obviously the depreciation,
Yeah,
that the way
depreciation.
that can impact your taxes, and then the cash flow that could potentially be coming from that as well is really important. And so, and that really is what it's all about. Constantly, I'm
Right.
talking about cash flowing assets, whatever that may look like. There are different types of cash flowing assets, but yeah, at some point, the funds that you have to start to use them in a particular way, and you have to start buying back your time.
Right.
It involves buying assets because if I am not it involves you moving from active income right to passive income, right? Active to
Right.
semi-passive to entirely passive, and then even to portfolio income. So where I don't have to do anything. There's one of the things that is on my to-do list that I have to do is I'm sending out messages to investment clients of mine to talk about and I'll probably will do personalized messages to be very honest, but
Okay.
talking about their particular growth. Some people we've already gone over it, but talking about their growth. I have clients that, last year they increased their portfolios individual, like it might have increased like 40,000. I have clients
Right.
that, it increased 20,000. It grew, by maybe 10,000, right? It all depends on how much is in there, but
Right.
they didn't do anything. They went to work, right? The only thing is that their money was in the market,
Right.
doing what it needed to do. And so that's certainly an example of appreciation. But what if you got a certain type of asset like like a property, like an investment property in particular, and you also got cash from it? Not
Right.
only was it growing in terms of appreciation, but that cash was coming from it as well. And it's not a matter of you just, I'm spending the cash. You still got to be smart with it. But
Right.
that's how if you can get 1,200, if you can get 1,200 from an asset and you didn't do anything but except own the asset, that's 1,200 less technically, right? That you either have to go out and work for, or that's less pressure on what you do have to go out and work for.
Right. So as Nipsey called it, mailbox money. Money just
Mailbox
coming
money.
in easy. Mailbox money. So one thing, like I said, focusing on this year is shifting our culture into that. So, from an educational standpoint, ladies and gentlemen, you must focus on saving money. Okay, it's not just about saving for retirement, but to buy these assets. So, I would challenge look at your budget, go through your bank account and write out a budget. See where you're spending money so that you can purchase a home. Especially here in LA, a lot of people don't think they can buy a home, but you can. It's going to take a little more work. So let me give you some tips. Number one, you can use what is called a FHA loan. Okay, so those are first time home buyers where it allows you to put down 3.5%. So if you're buying a home for 300,000, all right, you got to put down 3.5%, which would be 10,500. If you save $500 a month this year, that's 6 grand you can save at the end of the year. By summertime, you'll have that 10,500. Now in LA, you're probably not gonna find a house for 300,000 no more. But we're just talking about the educational standpoint of
Right.
getting that structure down and budgeting. Now, to actually do that, you can. This is where group economics come into play. If you have a sibling, a best friend, a favorite cousin, a favorite auntie, sit down and let's talk about how we can quote unquote become an institutional investor ourselves by us practicing group economics. Okay. For the next year and a half, if you save 10 grand, your auntie saved 10 grand, your favorite cousin saved 10 grand, that's 30 grand right there. And this is how we can get into buying property. So it is important that we not only think about saving money for the future, but even for now, because as you talked about that asset, when you own that asset, if you're buying units or even with a single family, you renting out rooms, that's people paying you to rent your property. That's money coming in. And Jadeka mentioned about the tax deduction on the depreciation. That is very, very important. You can get you a tax refund. That's more money for you. You know, people, you're going to get that child tax credit. You're going to get some money back. This is how we start to play this game. And that's why I love what we do so much, because we get to sit down and walk people through the game plan. And it actually works if you listen, you know. So that's why I love what we do, because this money game is important, you know.
Yeah.
So having those assets,
And
okay,
I want
building
to
that
add something.
portfolio.
I want to add something. I know because we talked about appreciation, but ultimately equity, right? Equity
Yeah,
in the property, and even potentially, right, being able to leverage that. Um, but oh, that's what I was saying. One of the things I again, messaging is super super important, right? Because you got to
very.
figure out what resonates with people. And I think I have some content, but one of my big things is building wealth, and I'll talk about this in like when I do talks and public speaking. Forbes said that building wealth to what people consider having built wealth, or what wealth is having between like a two to 3 million in net worth.
Right.
Okay, so 2 to 3 million in net worth, assets minus liabilities, right? So you gotta manage that debt, eliminate that debt, because that will kill your net worth. But while obviously you're buying assets, right, or growing assets. But when we talked about kind of connecting this to the retirement conversation, or the making work optional conversation, each asset, so like a property, and obviously the numbers, it depends on the numbers, but a property could literally cut down your retirement age, right, by 5 to 7 years with every
Right.
property that you get. I think when I'm talking to clients, one of the things I always say is that your mortgage, certainly your first mortgage, that should not be a mortgage that you're paying by yourself. Because then it's just a liability. Then
Right.
we're not talking about assets anymore, right? Someone needs to be helping you with that mortgage. That's the point, right? One is to ideally get it taken care of, and then the next level is to accelerate it, right? To
Right.
accelerate that payoff, so that you don't have to. You might get the 30-year, but to not have to wait the entire 30 years. How can we accelerate that? Because if we're really putting different strategies together, you can put more, put additional money and put it totally towards the
Right.
principal, all of that stuff, right? We're kind of jumping the gun, because that assumes that you're already in the property. But coming back to, you mentioned FHA. I had somebody in my community, a real estate agent that I talked to, that I work with a lot. I've referred people to her, and then also a mortgage lender at the time. And you do mortgages, right?
Yes, I do have my mortgage license.
Okay. And one of the other things, in addition to the different financing options that are out there, is people doing research, like education, like go where, because people might be, right? Everybody that might be tuning in might not be from California, but also just researching also your local programs. Like, is your city giving stuff money away? Is your county? Are
Right.
there, certain programming grants? I know the state of California has one where they'll help you pay. They'll help you buy property. Now you also got to know the details in some of the
Right.
because I think they take equity. Like I feel
Equity
like
once you sell or refinance.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you gotta be mindful about what it is, but also to look into, in addition to some of these programs, even though what you're talking about, also looking at locally, like what programs are out there where they can,
Right.
especially like home buyer programs or first time home buyer programs.
Absolutely. That's important. That's very, very important. I think for our first live tonight, it's been about 30 minutes. That was fast. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, this was good. This was good to educate and to share and then give details of what a person could do with their finances, how they can get on track. We definitely are looking to educate more. Anything on your mind that you wanted to share at the moment?
I mean, just folks, get on it. Again, I was having a really good conversation earlier today, and we just started this year, and that particular conversation just had to do with like, what do you want the year to look like?
Right.
Just being super intentional. Everybody always talks about the resolutions, and resolutions are cool, but at the end of the day, something in you, it don't need to, right? But I just behoove people to get in alignment with, whatever that thing is that you're supposed to be doing, your purpose,
Right.
and every day literally work towards that. I, some, me, right? And,
Right.
and every single day, I am, whether it's up, moving, obviously same as you. But one of the things I was asked today is like, what is that? Like, what gets you moving? And I swear, like God woke you up today.
Right.
God, He woke you up today, right here, she, right? But
Right.
you were woken up today, and I feel like I would not be being obedient to the gift that I was given because people leave every day. You
Every
like
day.
they were just here, whether you know them, whether you don't know them, you've seen something on the woman in Minnesota, right?
Right.
People who you're like, they didn't expect that to be the last
The
day,
last day.
and I think that's one of the biggest things for me is I'm like, I don't want to waste a day. Hell, I
Right.
don't know if I'm gonna be here tomorrow,
Right.
you know?
Now
And
that's the
so
fact.
just people, I encourage people. One of the things leaving this live is just encouraging people to, I know we were talking about different investment topics and retirement accounts, but just and from a more higher level of it is just really getting intentional with yourself, whether it's
Right.
your finances, getting intentional with that, figuring out the things that you need to do. Like, where do you want to be in December of 2026? What do
Right.
you want that to look like? And what needs to happen today in order for you to get there? And just
Right.
start to be intentional about everything that you're doing.
Now I agree. Intention is very, very important. So whether that's being intentional, like I said, on your finances, your spiritual growth, your physical growth, our health. With social media right now, it can go either way. Whether you wake up and you, like I said, you see about the thing in Minnesota, heck, the gentleman out here in Northridge,
Yeah.
the incident with the ICE agent. So, like
Hmm.
I said, these people didn't plan that it'll be their last day. And I think for us, our duty, like I said, is to use our gifts and our skill set. I was explaining that to somebody on my team as well, who I literally tried to get them to come work with me for about 5 years. And then when we got our first office, they came to one of our opportunity nights, and they were very, very hesitant. Got into the game, and they didn't realize that they had this talent to do this. Like a lot of us are operating with hidden gifts. I love speaking. I have no problem speaking, being on stage. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I didn't know about being a financial advisor, but that gift and talent is within us, and we gotta use it. And
Yeah.
now being a person who already liked helping people, now learning something important about real estate and taxes and retirement accounts and the stock market and all of that. If you put those all together, that is what you and I have been chosen to do, to be able to educate our community as far as giving back.
Hmm.
Yes, we definitely want to make money because nobody works for free, but when you're able to make an impact, it's going to help your income. I
Hmm.
think I'm gonna stop on that note
That's
right there.
right.
You know?
That's it. That's it.
impact to help
Agreed.
your income. So
For
I
sure.
enjoyed us jumping on tonight to help educate our people. We're definitely gonna keep coming with more. Now that we're looking at this live option, we actually can jump on many more times, with current events to just educate, man, because we got to understand we can, with all that's going on, we can still maneuver through and do what we got to do for our people.
Yep. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So yeah, we'll definitely hop back on, otherwise later on this week or next week for sure, and do this more often.
All righty. Well, I will holler
Mhm.
at you and we'll talk in a couple days.
Okay. All right, y'all.
All right.
Bye bye.
Peace.